You know how it is when you're scrolling through the news on any given day? It just feels like this constant, overwhelming flood of crime stories. Every single one is a tragedy for sure, but when you see them all together, they can feel like just random, disconnected events. Well, today we're going to try to cut through some of that noise. We're going to look at a handful of recent headlines from all across India and see if we can spot any emerging patterns behind these really shocking cases. All right, let's get into it.
And just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're dealing with, a quick search for murder cases in India on NDTV brings back 1,000 results. 1,000. It's just impossible to process each of those stories individually. And that's exactly why looking for the themes, the patterns underneath it all, is so important if we really want to understand what's going on.
And we have to remember, behind every single one of those 1,000 headlines, there's a story of incredible human tragedy. Like this one from Meerut. The pain is so real, and that cry for justice is just raw. So that brings us to the big question for today. Are these all just tragic, isolated incidents? Or do these headlines, when you look at them all together, start to reveal something much deeper about the nature of violent crime in the country?
So the first pattern that really jumps out from the headlines, and maybe the most common one, is violence committed not by some random stranger, but by the people closest to the victims. We're talking about their own intimate partners. Okay, let's start with this case out of Odisha. A man was shot dead, and after the investigation, police ended up arresting 5 people. The main person accused? His own wife. The motive they reported was that he had objected to her extramarital affairs. It's just a shocking level of betrayal, and it sets a really troubling theme. And believe it or not, this was not an isolated event. Way over in Madhya Pradesh, a hauntingly similar story unfolded. A wife and her lover are accused of killing her husband. And the details that came out are particularly awful, with the wife allegedly telling him, "You don't deserve me," because he was dark-skinned. When you see this kind of thing happening in different states, it starts to look less like a coincidence and more like a pattern. What's so chilling about this is the amount of cold, hard calculation that went into it. This quote from the case in Madhya Pradesh, it shows this wasn't just some crime of passion. No, it was a planned-out murder, and they even tried to stage a fake robbery to throw the police off track. Okay. The next pattern we uncovered is, if you can believe it, even more disturbing. We're moving from the betrayal of a spouse to what has to be the ultimate betrayal of trust: violent crimes against children, often by the very people who are supposed to be protecting them. Just look at this list of who the accused are. In Ghaziabad, in 2 separate recent cases, uncles are the main suspects in the murders of their own 4-year-old nieces. Then in Bihar, a 5-year-old boy was allegedly killed by his school's hostel guard. In every single one of these cases, the person accused was in a position of guardianship, of trust. That's the real gut punch here, the absolute violation of that sacred trust. Now for the final pattern we're going to look at. We're moving outside of the home and into the world of organized and serial crime. These are cases that involve predators who are targeting strangers, and also criminals who are working as part of bigger networks.
So first, you have the case of a serial killer in Andhra Pradesh. This guy, who used a bunch of different names, Vishwanath, Prashanth, Aziz, to stay hidden for years, was specifically going after women who lived by themselves. This case shows us a whole different type of crime, one that's driven by this predatory behavior that targets some of the most vulnerable people in society.
And then you have this case, which is completely different again. Sahil Chauhan, a wanted gangster accused of murder, dacoity, you name it. He wasn't just some lone wolf predator. His case involves organized crime that even has an international angle, needing him to be extradited all the way from Thailand. It just goes to show you the huge range of criminal activity that's making the headlines. Okay, so we've looked at several really shocking cases. They seem disconnected, right? They're from all over the country. An unfaithful spouse in Odisha, a trusted uncle in Uttar Pradesh, a serial killer down in Andhra Pradesh. But now, let's pull them all together and actually visualize the patterns that link them. And this table just lays it all out so clearly. You can see how the headlines fall into these very distinct categories. You've got intimate partner violence, where the perpetrator is a spouse. You have violence against children, where its family members are guardians. And then you have serial and organized crime, committed by strangers or gang members. When you organize the news this way, all that chaos, it suddenly snaps into focus as these clear and, frankly, very troubling patterns. So after laying it all out like that, we're left with this big question. These aren't just random acts of violence, they are patterns. Patterns of betrayal inside families, of predation on the most vulnerable, and of organized criminal networks. Seeing the patterns, well, that's the first step.
The next, much harder step is to ask what they truly tell us about the society we're all living in.